Alright, so this is part 2 of July's WebBot report, basically. Kind of where I left off from yesterday, you could say. And here we go. This is July 2015, of course. China will be implementing capital controls just like Greece did, just like a lot of other countries are going to ultimately do, because their whole economy, market, etc. is going to be getting hit very hard. So they're not going to really have a choice in the government's mind but to implement capital controls. You've already seen a little taste of this right now with the them telling CEOs you can't sell shares of your company for the next 6 months. They have to stay, like, you have to leave them in the market. It's like almost telling someone you got to stay in your house while it's on fire. I mean, really? Bitcoin during all this should be pretty safe. Now, I don't know if you've noticed. Now, keep in mind, this WebBot report came out July 8th. So that was when it was first available online. And it mentioned something about premiums yesterday, about premiums going up on silver and coins and things like that. And I noticed yesterday a new headline about, was it the Mint or was it Eagles? It was something that said premiums are going to be rising now. Now keep in mind, this is days later than the WebBot report mentioned, or could have known, because it came out on the 8th, and here we are yesterday, several days later, with a new headline. This was a brand new news story. I just read it that day as I was uploading my video that morning. I'm like, man, I need to go back out in my car for 2 seconds to say, hey, WebBot hit. There's a freaking WebBot hit right now. However, back to part 2 anyways. Bitcoin's going to be safe. What point of me telling you this is that literally just the last few days, Bitcoin has gone from 250 to over 300. That's a pretty large move, if I don't mind saying so. And currently today it was right around that same mark, 290 something, 300, whatever. Bitcoin's going to be playing a role in the future. A big hit to the credit market is coming. I mean, now some of this you're going to think, well, this is what we were expecting in September, October anyways with this big market crash. And granted, yeah, but WebBot doesn't know and doesn't care what you and I think we know. It's going to report the data that it has, plain and simple. So yeah, big hit coming to the credit market. And again, he thinks this, from what it looks like, this data he's talking about is in the very near future. So we're talking, when he says August, September, whatever, he's talking this year. And next he says February, March, he's talking of next year. Now, again, my million times disclaimer is that I've seen the WebBot miss things by a year or more, easily more, sometimes. And then later on when it happens, it's spectacular. Like, wow. Considering what we're talking about, this might be one of those times when WebBot got the right time frame, if you know what I mean. So February, March-ish, big crash to whatever is left of however the hell it goes down, September, October, November, December. So another big crash of some sort, and it's going to mostly be felt in industries like, for example, he says big manufacturing stuff like, and even in China, shipbuilding, Caterpillar, and big, heavy equipment, stuff like that's going to feel it big time. And a lot of it has to do with that credit market freezing up, because a lot of these companies have to go and get, borrow money on credit to fund some of these huge expenses that they have. So when that starts to dry up, those companies aren't going to be able to just reach out there and get these loans like they've used to, been able to have done like they've always done, you could say. Oh, we'll just get a loan through this company. Well, if that company's rates aren't great, we'll go to this other company. No, you're going to have trouble in both those companies. because you're just not going to flat out not going to be able to get what you need. You know, in other words, we can't give you the loan. Plain and simple, you can't. You're not going to get it, because some of those companies also borrow from other lenders too, certain banks and things. So if their credit line dries up, that means that companies who needs them, their credit line also dries up. It's just a kind of one of those daisy chain things. So that'll be interesting. And he was talking about China at this particular point in time in the WebBot report. So he says Bitcoin should be Bitcoin's coming rise. It should be a prelude to silver's price rise. I don't know why I can't talk right now. Maybe because I'm trying to drive and quickly look down and look up, whatever. So, Bitcoin prelude to silver price rise. We should see an approximate price for Bitcoin of around $408, 408. And it's gonna go down a little bit when it hits that roughly $400 mark, 408, whatever. And then it'll go back up around that same, you know, plus or minus a little bit. So it's going to drop down a little bit, go back up a little bit, and roughly it'll be the $400 area. Once that happens, and it goes back up, then it will start to go up. Like, okay, it's not going to bounce back down. Now it's going to start rising again. So 408, down a little bit, back to 408, up a little bit, hovers around 408, and then it goes up. So that, if you see that happen, is what he's saying, you can expect, or should expect, a silver price rise to be happening shortly thereafter. And the reason being is that he says not the same data, but two different data sets. So one, you know, the silver price, and a different data set on Bitcoin. But they both have the same time marks, if you will, time frames of happening, you know, with Bitcoin being just slightly earlier than silver. So he's saying, Bitcoin, look for that price, and when you see it start to go and hit that level, you can expect silver to start taking off too, right afterwards, you know, shortly afterwards. And he says if Bitcoin does not do this during the same time frame he's talking about, it doesn't automatically mean that, well, silver, because it didn't happen with Bitcoin when he thought it would, automatically everything's off for silver and the price isn't going to $62 next and all that. He said that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying there's two completely different data sets with the same time frame in here. So what I'm suggesting, or he is suggesting, is that if you see the price of Bitcoin start to rise to that 400 level mark, you could be, you know, pretty certain at that point that shortly after that, silver's going to start rising pretty significantly. And he said again, it may not even be that the spot price rises. We may see an average spot price of where it's been now, but all of a sudden the premiums go crazy. He said it could be that, or literally the price just goes up. Plain and simple. One way or the other, the price you pay for silver, premium, no premium, whatever, is going up. So he said, you know, if the thing with Bitcoin doesn't exactly happen, in that time when he's expecting it to happen, comes and goes, he says that's just one little piece on Bitcoin in that time frame. That doesn't mean that the silver price isn't going to happen all of a sudden. That $62, you know, small step as they called it, is all of a sudden out the window because this Bitcoin thing didn't happen. That's not what he was saying. So he actually clarified that's not the case. So don't think that silver still can't go up, because we're showing in the data that it's still going to go. He says there's some language talking about Greece's dollar, which probably is going to be the drachma, that's what it used to be, being attached to Bitcoin in some way. This is in the future, not like way out, but in the midterm, medium, early time frame of, I guess, after this crap happens, the September, October crash, whatever. ultimately Greece is gonna, what he can only interpret, and I don't think there's a whole lot of data here for him, but he said you can expect them to maybe a good example he said would be like, okay, the drachma, the Greece currency, is going to be partially or fully or somehow attached to Bitcoin in some way, shape, or form. And that a good ways out into the future, people looking back in Greece, for example, who had these Bitcoins at the time or whatever and held on to them or however, whatever happens, are going to be, I guess, sitting pretty, so to speak, as time goes on, because apparently Bitcoin can only, or is only going to increase in value as the other crap gets worse. Same can be said about precious metals, and for the same reasons. And he said, when we see these things happening, whether it be the Bitcoin price going up or, he mentioned precious metals prices going up, while some of us may say, oh yes, finally I'm getting some good money, and even if prices go way up, which is what we're hoping and expecting, that doesn't necessarily mean that's a good thing, because if and when that happens, that means there's a whole lot of other stuff that ain't so good. Matter of fact, a whole bunch of other really important stuff in your life and your country that's not going to be good, and those prices going up are pretty much the thermometer, so to speak, of those other things going bad. So, bottom line, precious metal prices are still going to be going up like everyone all thought, but that's not going to be a good thing. Because, I said this the other day to somebody, I don't know, maybe been a guy I met at met in Orlando, a little while back. I told you about like a week ago, and I was telling him, I was like, look, if I had the opportunity right now to say, Joe, we want all your silver, every ounce of it, every single thing you got, and in doing so, all this crap that's down the pike coming won't happen. Matter of fact, maybe it'll just lessen it by 50%. I would run as fast as I could and give that silver away. If I could do that. That's what was the conversation I had. But that's not going to happen. And this massive worldwide debt has to be dealt with, and it's going to. So Greece is going to somehow attach their backing, something within Greece, they are going to go with Bitcoin. And the interesting thing here is that the recently resigned foreign finance minister actually was either a partner or had something to do with one of these cryptocurrency technologies, actually, which was very interesting. Of course, he's not in the picture now. He's resigned. Gold's price will rise, but it will be lagging behind silver and Bitcoin by a number of weeks. So when we start to see Bitcoin rise, silver rise, gold will rise, but it says it appears that Bitcoin first, then silver, and then gold. It's just going to lag behind, is all he's saying. Not that it's not going to go up. Once again, rebalancing of the silver to gold ratio is going to be happening. And he said, once again, there's data again in this Webbot report that says, in relation to the gold and silver ratio, there will be parity. Meaning 1-to-1. 1 ounce of gold price is 1 ounce of silver price, same price, which would be insane. Because if gold is $4,000 or $5,000, you're telling me silver is $4,000 or $5,000 an ounce? Doesn't sound right. And he said, look, I'm going to, he's just reiterating what he's already said before. All of that Webbot is doing is basically saying in a nutshell, what this forecast that Webbot is giving you, and in this instance, we're talking about silver to gold ratio being parity. It means that in the future, when this happens, there will be lots of language going on the internet, on the news, whatever, in which people are talking about gold and silver and the word parity. So he said, right off the bat, it sounds like naturally, well, silver is going to gold's prices 1-to-1. However, it could also be that for some reason a whole bunch of people all over the internet, enough to where the webbot's going to grab this and actually use it as data, which means a whole hell of a lot of people are going to all of a sudden be talking about gold and silver being in parity. And let's just say, for example, people were, laughing out loud, silver will never be at parity with gold, you guys are insane. And then for some reason, that same meme is talked about all over the place. My problem with that is, why would that be a giant discussion of, like, laughing out loud, that'll never happen? That's not going to make big internet waves. People are already saying that now. Not even necessarily the parity part, because no one's even thought about that. This first came from the webbot. So it's not like people are out now talking about gold and silver being at parity. Come on. Silver can't be at parity with gold. That's insane. The only reason they're going to say that is if they have ever heard me talk about a web report or anyone else, or read it themselves and saw that piece and then start talking about it. The problem is the webbot already picked up that language long ago, before that was even a thought in my mind or anyone else's mind. So clearly there's going to be some discussion about this for some other reason, in my opinion. And I don't think it's going to be laughing out loud, silver will never be at parity with gold, and that's what the discussion is, and yet webbot picked that up. Because in previous reports, it talked about that ratio coming way down, 20 to 1, 16 to 1, 10 to 1, then briefly parity. So he just wanted to just basically say, all that his webbot is saying is that particular phrase, so to speak, that topic, silver ratio and gold being at parity, is going to be coming up. How or why, he doesn't know. Okay? So, language in the future, we'll be discussing this. Keep in mind, if the language in the future comes out because tons of people are, well, that's just what I just explained, saying fat chance that silver and gold will be at the same price, all he knows is that something is going to trigger this type of discussion. A number of shocks will be hitting people, primarily, or not necessarily primarily, but especially, I think was the word, in the United States and the UK. A number of shocks, so people being shocked by such and such events. And I don't mean electrocuted. I'm talking, oh my God, shocking, I can't believe this just happened, or that kind of thing. Money laundering police type thing, which is back to yesterday's webbot report when I talked about China police military uniforms, them going on this money laundering, and just basically a huge crackdown of all kinds of corruption. And during that time, while they're going after these basically Chinese citizens, who some have moved or went to the U.S., opened up accounts in the U.S., purchased a bunch of assets in the U.S., etc. He's saying that we, here in this soil and the UK, will be seeing these Chinese people, authorities, so to speak, in uniform, in our country, and other countries too, but America and UK are going to be noticeably the most, I guess, that are going to be talking about this the most. Now, he says they're going to be here due to them trying to find these Chinese citizens of theirs in all these countries, such as the US, UK, and whatever other countries they go into, to grab them, basically make them pay for the problems they caused in China, financially or whatever, and that many of them bought real estate, high dollar this, high dollar that, assets, buildings, whatever, and they are coming here to basically repossess, so to speak, those assets of those people, and say these are now the state of China's because you guys got this fraudulently to begin with. However, them being on our soil in some kind of uniform, that doesn't mean they're carrying guns and stuff. That's not what it was talking about. But in some kind of noticeable uniform, stirs up a whole lot of discussion, some of which is going to be shocking to American citizens for some reason. Real estate crash is coming, but it's going to be kind of a weird crash, he says. It's kind of like a freeze due to the credit markets freezing up. So Whereas you would normally expect prices to just crash in 2008, you know, all that, oh my God, real estate has just dropped. It's going to be a bit different this time, only because he says it's going to be like you're trying to get a mortgage, you're trying to get a loan for a house, and you can't get the loan. Not because, oh, your credit or the bank or mortgage agency, they're not going to be able, because of the freezing up of credit markets, to give you a loan. So you can't sell your house even if you want to, unless somebody's got cash in their pocket to give you for your house, which is almost likely, I don't know, 0%, unless someone's got tons of money to drop $200,000-$300,000 on a house. Having said that, they would be a fool to do that, because if people are trying to sell their house, can't sell their house, credit markets are frozen up, anybody who has a house that is now nervous and scared is simply going to drop the price until a person that has cash can come get the house, potentially. That is only the types of people who own their house outright. Let's just say you have a $250,000 house, you owe $80,000 on it now, and oh my God, I got to sell and get out of here. I don't like what's happening, and America just happened. I got to get out of this neighborhood. I got to get out of the state. I'm going to move to such and such. We owe $80,000 on this house. It's worth, let's just say, it's worth $250,000. That's what the market says right now. Credit markets freeze up. You can't sell it for $250,000. You can't sell it for $200,000. You can't sell it for $175,000. You can't sell it for $150,000. Credit markets have frozen up, so people can't go and get loans. You are not selling the house. So is there some people out there that might have $80,000 on them? Maybe. And at that point, that's the only person you're going to be able to get this house sold to, because you still owe $80,000 to the bank. And while credit's market for frozen up, trust me, you're going to still make that payment, or that bank's going to come get that house in a hurry. Especially if you only owe $80,000 on a $250,000 house. So you have to get that $80,000 from that person to pay off your mortgage, what's left of it, which is stupid anyways, right? Because why would you even waste your time doing that to just walk away free and clear? Oh, I don't owe anything on it. Okay, so you took $80,000, paid off your house, you don't get anything out of it. The bank gets it, and now this person gets their house because you just paid off the bank while simultaneously giving whoever your house. At that point, why are you going to trouble yourself? You would probably just walk and leave. And then the bank would be real happy because they just got your $80,000 house foreclosed on you, and then went and tried to resell it later to someone else. However, if credit markets are still frozen, even that bank's going to be in a little bit of a bind to sell that house. So he says, they're going to come over here and try to seize these assets, these Chinese people, these officials, seize assets from these other Chinese citizens that have committed these crimes. This would include lots of real estate, and strangely enough, Florida was mentioned in his example, that there's actually data that Florida will be in one of the spots where some Chinese put some money. And of course, they're going to repossess it or take it from their citizens over here because of what their citizens were doing, committing financial fraud and crimes, just like our people in finance here do. Except China is going to go overseas to America to come grab their asses and bring them back and make them stand trial while simultaneously taking their assets because they were ill-gotten gains. Now, I will tell you another interesting thing about China. China, a while back, probably at least 2-3 years ago, I think, if I recall, publicly, worldwide stated, oh, by the way, your Western derivatives things you guys made up, yeah, over here in China, we don't even acknowledge them. So if anything happens with that and you come and look, we don't even acknowledge derivatives. So don't even come here trying to bring that crap over here or say that we owe, credit default swaps and all. We just wipe them off the face of the earth. Don't come here. So a credit freeze will be happening, so getting a loan to the house is going to be very difficult during this time. Bond market will also be in very great distress. And he reiterated again, you probably won't be selling your house. Now I'm going to remind you of one other thing, not in the Webot report whatsoever, but I got to refresh your memory on something that happened at the end of last year, November, December timeframe, if I recall correctly. the CME group, which is the one that controls the commodities market, so that means gold, silver, all food commodities, gas, oil, etc., changed the rules on gold and silver and said, if gold, this is the short version, if gold moves $400 in a day, there will be 4 circuit breakers triggered during that time frame at each $100 level, I believe, for gold. Circuit breakers triggered. You can't buy, sell, trade gold for X amount of minutes time frame. Then the market goes back on live. If it hits another 100 move up or down, circuit breakers triggered again. This will happen 4 times, basically, essentially in a trading day. Now, what I saw after that was, after that happens, there's no more circuit breakers. So if this happens in the span of 2 or 3 hours, and you got the rest of the day after that, that means the price can go anywhere and there's no more circuit breakers. And they talked about a $400 move for gold. In silver, it was somewhere around, I think, $12, $13, $14. I want to say $12 move in a single day. So it basically would equate to, same thing, 4 circuit breakers in a day divided by 12. Right, so you have 3 times 4, 12. So $3 moves in silver is enough to trigger a circuit breaker, and then it triggers again if we have another $3 move, and then it triggers it, right, 4 times by the time you get to 12. I believe the same thing applies for silver. Once that 4th and final circuit breaker has been triggered, there's no more circuit breakers. It's just going to keep going. My point of this was, why would these, and this is back then, I said it then, why would the CME group, why would the club, if prices are going to be smashed, why would they change the rules? Because they've never changed. When silver was $49, gold was $1,900, and then they had these waterfall slams, especially on silver. Wasn't no rule changes there. Wasn't no circuit breaker, nothing. It was sell, 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 waterfall, let these people feel this pain. So if that's the case, why would they put a circuit breaker in place to save you from a little bit of pain so that you can potentially offload your position here right when the market opens back up, because this is just crazy. We had a circuit breaker hit, I'm out. They would just let a waterfall crash happen to you and say, sorry about your luck. So my point is, they're expecting massive, unprecedented rises in the price of gold and silver. They've already changed the rules. It's already on the books. It's already live, so to speak. It can happen today. And they already have this planned out for all this, what I just told you, to take effect. Why would they do that if the prices of precious metals are going to be smashed and they're not going to go back up and blah, blah, blah? Because they are going to go back up. And if we have $62 silver here shortly, some circuit breakers might be getting tripped on the way up. And they may get tripped on day 1. They may get tripped again on day 2. They may get tripped again on day 3. Point being, there's no way on the face of this earth they changed those rules. They didn't even change them, made them up out of nowhere. Nothing like this has ever happened with that. And all of a sudden, it's in here now, ready to go. We did this a year ago, whatever. Okay, yeah. One might ask, why did you guys do that? Nothing has happened. Gold hasn't moved big time. Silver hasn't moved big time. And why would you implement these things? They seem pretty stable, so to speak, right? Because the price will be rising extremely. And they've got to deal with that. So they can't have an $800, $900 a move day in gold. Because if you see it move like that, the amount of panic buying that would ensue would be unprecedented and would drive the price even higher to a more absurd level than you could ever imagine. But if they're triggering circuit breakers, you can't have that mad influx to get in there. Everyone's in timeout, emotions calm down, market will open up in 15 minutes or whatever the trigger is, start over again, and then of course there's going to be a bunch of people back in it. And then by the second time, everyone's going to say, man, it kept going. And then by the third trigger, man, it kept going again. I got to get in on this. And then the fourth trigger, right, more. My question is, what happens after that fourth trigger? Because if that's the end of the triggers, then what? Could we have another $400, $600, $800 move in gold and God knows what in silver? According to what I read, the answer is yeah, that could happen. So I didn't want you to forget about that, because that did happen. That is a fact that is now on the books. CFTC knows all about it, right? The regulator, not that they regulate anything, they're crooks, look the other way. But nonetheless, CME Group, who controls that market, CFTC, it's been announced, this is how it's going to work. We've got this in place starting on such and such, and that date has already started. It's already live, so to speak. So do not forget that. And don't forget your pal who told you that as soon as it happened. JSNIP4. There's always importance. They always do things in advance so that when certain things happen, they don't have to deal with it now. Oh my God. They know in advance what they're going to do. They know in advance what the reaction is going to be. They know in advance what has going to happen because of it. And they're going to make preparations to deal with it now. So that is proof that we silver and gold stackers have been saying all along, what we've been saying all along. Manipulation, price suppression, it's going to go away. And it's going to go away with a bang. And there's going to be some huge prices coming. That, if nothing else has been said since then, that's the only thing you need to pay attention to. If you're asking yourself, should I get into precious metals? I don't have any. And just look at that CME Group move. That should answer any of your questions. Take care.